Most of us have had that moment. You stare at the test, you wait, and then a line. It could be a pregnancy test, a rapid COVID test, or a drug test. But what they have in common is this tiny line that can completely change the movement of a room. But what I love about that moment is how deceptive it is. Because it looks very simple, it's just a line. But that line is doing something extraordinary. It's taking something hidden, something far too small for your eyes to see, and making it unmistakably visible. And often what makes that line appear is something even smaller. Nanoparticles, tiny materials, invisible to the eye, but powerful enough to turn hidden information into something you can see in an instant. That, to me, is the magic of nano. What is nano? Nano means 1 billionth. A nanometer is 1 billionth of a meter. And that number is so extreme, it almost stopped meaning anything. So here is one way to feel it. Your fingernails grow at roughly 1 nanometer every second. Which means while I've been standing here talking, your body has already been moving through the nanoscale. But I know it's very, very difficult to feel that. So here is another way to feel it. 1 nanometer compared with 1 meter is like 1 second compared with almost 32 years. Not very helpful. Okay. Take this. Take 1 strand of hair. It already looks very tiny. But this single hair is almost 100,000 nanometers wide. Now imagine slicing that hair by its diameter, not into 10 pieces, not into 100 pieces, but into thousands and thousands of invisible layers. That is the world of nano. But what matters to me as a nanotechnologist is not just simply that nano is small, it's that at that scale, materials start behaving differently. Gold is the perfect example. In our everyday world, gold is gold. It's shiny, it's yellow, it's stable. It sits in jewelries, coins, wedding rings, quietly doing what gold has always done. But shrink gold down to the nanoscale, and suddenly, it's not just yellow anymore. Gold nanoparticles can appear red, blue, or even green, depending on their size and shape. Same material, same element, but a completely different personality. And gold is not the only example. Take carbon. In one form, carbon is soft enough to write with, and that is graphite in a pencil. In another form is diamond, one of the hardest material ever known. But at the nanoscale, carbon becomes graphene, a very thin layer made of only 1 atom, but incredibly strong, highly conductive, and almost transparent. Only 1 atom thick, but powerful enough that has changed entire sectors from electronics to sensors to energy devices and even medicine. Or think about silver. A silver spoon is just a silver spoon. But silver nanoparticles can interact strongly with bacteria. They can damage bacterial membrane, they can disrupt their survival. The same silver that can sit quietly on a dinner table can suddenly become a microscopic defender. Or think about sunscreens. Many sunscreens use nanoparticles of zinc oxide and titanium dioxide. At a normal scale, these materials are just white powders, but at the nanoscale, they can become invisible on your skin while blocking harmful UV light. So something that once it's like thick white paint can suddenly become an invisible shield. And that's exactly where nanotechnology starts to feel almost magical. But it is not magic. It's physics, chemistry, engineering, biology meeting at the scale where the rules begin to change. At the nanoscale, surfaces become way more important than volume. Electrons behave differently, light interacts differently. Tiny changes in size can create a huge change in color, conductivity, strength, reactivity. And if I hold a nanomaterial in my hand, I'm not just holding a smaller version of the same material. I'm holding a material with a new identity. A material that can see light differently, it can react with gases differently, it can talk to cells differently. A material that can open a new conversation with my hand, my body. Yes, your body, the most extraordinary chemical factory on Earth. Inside you, there is a whole universe of reactions happening. Every second, cells collide, signals travel, molecules appear and disappear. And just as astronomers can read distant stars through faint light, we can read the body through faint signals. Signals in sweat, saliva, tears, and breath. Because your breath is not just air moving in and out. It's one of the body's quietest way of telling a story. If metabolism shifts, if disease begins to develop, if something starts to go wrong, your body may be dropping clues way earlier than we realize. The challenge is that those clues are almost impossibly faint. Sometimes it's just one target molecule hidden among a million others. And that's exactly why early detection is both so difficult and so powerful. Because to catch disease early, we need to detect the clue while still hidden, still rare. We need to detect the clue while still buried in noise. Ordinary materials struggle with that, but at the nanoscale, even a tiny trace of molecule can create a huge signal. And that is the world I work in. In my laboratory, we build sensors to catch those faint signals. We build sensors sensitive enough to detect parts per billion. Just a handful of molecules hidden among a billion others. At that level, the sensor is not just measuring, it's listening for a whisper. And that's impressive. Until you meet a dog, because dogs can smell things we can't even imagine smelling. A human walks into a room and detects nothing. A dog walks into the same room and reads a whole invisible world. And then we have bees. They are extraordinary detectors. Bees can detect chemicals at an incredibly tiny concentration, down to parts per trillion. And what's even more astonishing is how quickly bees can learn. The training is beautifully simple. You give the bee a target smell, then a drop of sugar as a reward. A target smell, then a drop of sugar as a reward, again and again. In less than 10 minutes, the bee learns that scent means sugar. The next time that the bee smells that target smell, it sticks out its tongue looking for sugar. That tiny tongue becomes our signal. It might seem funny and strange, but to me, This is brilliant. Because it reminds me that nature is already feeling what we struggle to detect. And that is what inspires me. Not to build hospitals run by bees, of course, but to learn from them. To build sensors that can do for humans what dogs and bees can do already beautifully doing in nature. To detect the faintest clue early enough to matter. Because in health, for example, timing changes everything. Early detection of a disease can be the difference between a simpler treatment and a harder one. Early detection of a disease can be the difference between higher chance of recovery and a missed opportunity. Can be the difference between life and death. And that's what I believe nanotechnology will do for us. To turn whispers into signals, signals into knowledge, and knowledge into time, because sometimes time is all we need. Thank you.